So this is a perfect segue, the conversation we had right now, to continuing our discussion in chapter 2 of Tanya, where before we left, which felt like, I don't know, a lifetime ago, but it was probably about a month ago, before the wedding, we were discussing this idea of that we have an animal soul, which is our survival instinct, our base human, conditioning, our ego, and that's the first soul, because that's the one that we're most connected to, because it's the most loud, it's the one that's the one that we first come into it. But at the same time, we have to always remember that we have this second soul, which is this divine soul, which is the peace of God within us. And we spoke about this idea that this second soul, which is our divine soul, is something that is very, very unique to us. And it's literally a piece of God above. That we have this part of God, this piece of God, that it says, Vayipach ba'apav nishmat chayim, that when God created the first man and woman, it was one androgynous being, it says that he literally blew his soul into us. And the idea of blowing, as we said, is that when we blow, it's different than speaking, right? When I speak right now, I'm using a certain amount of breath, but when we blow, we're blowing from a very deep, deep place from within us. And when God blew, it says that he blew a soul from his essence into our essence. So everything really comes down to that. Like, what is that power of saying, okay, I'm in fear, I'm in anxiety, the world is crazy, it's bringing up a lot of panic within me. But only when we connect to the fact that we have that divine soul, we have that divine soul that can see through all that sees through all that, sees through the full divine purpose and the divine intent and the love and the goodness within it, that connects us to this very, very deep, essential place within us, right? And it says that all other aspects of creation, like in the first day of creation when God created the world, came from a more superficial aspect of God, which is God's speech. It said that God created the world through speech, through these 10 measures of speech, that everything in the world is created through God's speech. All the inanimate, the animate object, the animal kingdom, everything in the world comes through God's speech. But man actually comes from this very, very deep, essential place within God, which is breath, which is God's breath, from his essence to our essence. And it's so important to really sit with this. Like, I think this is something that the more we actually really sit with and meditate on, and every moment really is an opportunity to do that, because like what we're saying, when we look at the world outside of us, or we feel fear in us, or we feel anxiety, we feel panic about our circumstances, or in our own lives, or what's happening in the world as a collective, it's always an important thing to tap into this divine soul. This is the ultimate place of healing, of tranquility, of peace that we can really come to within ourselves, no matter what's happening outside of us. And really meditating on this and really thinking about this taps us into what is our nature. Because this is our essential nature, that we have this piece of God within us. And when we really know our nature, that is the most important aspect of self-awareness of ourselves. Like, when we think of self-awareness, we think of the fact that, okay, I have a part of me that gets anxious, I have a part of me that maybe gets upset, I have a part of me that's full of compassion for others, empath. And yes, that is our nature. That could be our nature, right? We're all made of different elements and we all have a nature. But really, our true, most essential nature is this fact that we have a piece of God within us, that God blew into us, our soul, our divine soul. When we were now in Argentina, so we spent a lot of time in nature. And we spent like a few days in nature, and then what we did at the end of the trip, we went to a zoo where they showcased, different birds and different animals that were in the jungle and in the, the safari. And I remember thinking to myself that, like, it was so hard for me to go to the zoo after. Like, I've gone to so many zoos and I always found it like fascinating and interesting. I love, like, I don't know, I just love seeing animals. It's just amazing. It feels like, seeing the beauty of God's creations. But when I went to the zoo after spending so much time in nature, I just felt so sad because, like, you take this animal and you take it from its natural habitat and you put it in a zoo where it's just showcased for people to see and to experience and see the beauty of nature. But at the same time, it's so constricting to an animal, right? And you think about it, an animal that's put into captivity like that, taken from nature, put into captivity, it feels that constriction. It's going to feel, I mean, they say animals that are put into zoos are like depressed. They don't, they totally lose themselves. But the children that are born, let's say in a zoo, that's all they know. They know life in a zoo. They don't know life in the jungle. They don't know life open and in nature where they can run around and be free. And I was thinking that that's really like us. It hit me. I'm like, wow, we are almost in that way where we live our lives almost like forgetting what our essential nature is. It's almost like these animals that are born into captivity, where we just forget. We lose that sense that, wow, my nature really is, my essential core nature is that I'm a piece of God. And I have this essential part of God within me, and that is my essential nature. On a very physical level, like you think of breath, the breath is the most basic part of it is the life force within us, is our breath. And God breathed that soul within us. So our most essential life force, our breath that comes through to us, is that piece of God, which is just so powerful. Like, it's a huge concept to really sit and meditate on and to really, really think about. So now I want to continue along in the Tanya. I was thinking about it because I do feel there's so much value in reading inside. But at the same time, sometimes when we read inside and we learn, we could get lost in the language.